Hello, it's TechTuber here, and today we're going to do a comparison between the iPhone 4S and the Ipod Touch 5th generation. Okay, now to the build of the iPhone 4S. The iPhone 4S has a metal rim and feels really good in the hand. The main problem is that the front and back is made out of glass, meaning that if you drop it you have to repair both sides, and that it's not made out of Gorilla Glass. The back is scratch proof but the front isn't. Okay, now to the Ipod Touch. The Ipod Touch has a metal back unlike the iPhone. This means it's very hard to break or scratch the back of the phone. But with the front of the phone, it's not made out of Gorilla Glass, meaning you can scratch and break the front of the phone, just like the iPhone. One of the best things about the Ipod Touch is that it's a lot thinner than the iPhone, meaning it feels even better in the hand. This is why I think the Ipod Touch wins in build. Okay, now the size. The Ipod Touch is slightly taller and wider than the iPhone. It also has a bigger screen. It also weighs a lot less than the iPhone, but because it's not a phone, it means the Ipod Touch is a lot thinner than the iPhone, meaning that it wins in size. Okay, now the specs. The Ipod Touch and the iPhone both have a Apple A5 chip in it, so both of them should run very similar. It's going to be pretty hard to tell the difference between them in speed on paper without actually being able to handle the phone, being able to look at it yourself. Both of them can run Apple's latest operating system, iOS 7.1, so this is why they both draw in specs, as they are very similar in specs on paper, but I have not been able to actually handle both of them to see in real life the difference between them. So if you really want to have a better understanding of how well they work in the hand and how well they work speed comparison against each other, look on YouTube and see if you can see a comparison on there. So including all of this into my final conclusion, they both draw on specs. Okay, now the camera. Apple are very good with their cameras, even though sometimes their megapixels are lower. The camera quality and the actual pictures it takes are usually really good. But with the Ipod Touch, it has a 5 megapixel camera, and the iPhone, it has an 8 megapixel camera, meaning the iPhone wins easily with an 8 megapixel camera. Okay, now the sound. The Ipod Touch only has one speaker at the bottom, while the iPhone has two. This is why the iPhone wins in sound, as it has more speakers, meaning it should be louder. Okay, now to battery. The iPhone 4S has up to 14 hours of talk time, but with the Ipod Touch I couldn't find any information about that. All I could find out was that the Ipod Touch battery was slightly smaller than the iPhone's. Even though it's smaller, I think it will actually use up less battery power. So I think the iPhone and Ipod Touch both probably have similar battery life, that's why they draw in battery. Okay, now to my overall view. The iPhone 4S and the Ipod Touch 5th generation are very similar. The main difference is that one's a phone and one's not. So it all depends on the price you can get it at and how much you need it to be a phone. Where if you can get it at a good price on eBay for around 100 and you trust the person and you don't get scammed, obviously you should buy the iPhone 4S off eBay, and then you can use it as a phone, and also you can use it as like an Ipod Touch and play games on it. With the Ipod Touch, obviously, if you do have that, you will have to have a separate phone, so you'll probably have to have a cheap phone with you and carry with you at all times. So meaning that you won't be able to use the internet outside and stuff like that. So it all depends on the price you can get it at and how much you need it to be a phone.